So hey guys, and welcome to Politics Snaps. Now I'm delighted to be joined by Steven Edginton, who is the Chief Digital Strategist at Leave Means Leave. He also runs the Politics UK YouTube channel, which has, was it 30,000 subscribers or something?
A few more than that.
A few more than that. I've got 315, so there's a few more than me. So yes, Steven, thank you very much for your time. Now obviously the big news is last night, Theresa May went to Brussels and appears to, has agreed to a deal which could, it will see Brexit delay. The question is by how much. How disappointed are you?
Well, it's more humiliating than disappointed. She's failed the British people to deliver on her solemn promise to leave on March 29th. This is something that she repeated over 100 times in Parliament, and now she's gone to the EU begging for a delay. Now, I think that we all know that her deal is a terrible deal, is a bad deal. And in her own words, no deal is better than a bad deal. So she needs to deliver on that promise that she made in the 2017 manifesto to the British people and go for no deal. But the fact that she's had to go to the EU and beg for an extension to Article 50 just shows how weak she is and shows that she's not really in it to deliver on this thing.
Do you think the situation we got into is deliberate? Do you think there are people within government who are actively trying to sabotage the Brexit vote to get to this 100%. Situation? And do you think they include Theresa May? Or do you think is it cock-up or conspiracy, basically, or some combination of the two?
Well, definitely a bit of both. But if they wanted to deliver Brexit, they damn well could have done.
Yeah.
As I say, they have this choice. They could go for no deal on the 29th of March. Parliament has rejected her deal twice. Bercow said you can't even take it back to the MPs. So she has this choice, and she's choosing to go for delay. Now, is it cock-up or conspiracy? Well, Remain MPs in Parliament have been spending the last 2 years trying to stop Brexit, trying to go for an EU referendum. Only 85 of them managed to vote for it in Parliament last week. Cabinet ministers within the cabinet, Remainer cabinet ministers that is, saying that they're going to resign if there's no deal. These people are actively trying to stop democracy and actively trying to stop the will of the people go through. And the EU have been trying to frustrate Brexit. Theresa May has failed to negotiate. She's a terrible negotiator. I think that's pretty obvious. There's also large aspects of the civil service who are in favour of Remain and are frustrating the Brexit vote from the inside. Unfortunately, throughout the whole of these negotiations, they've been spending, I speak to a lot of civil servants, read a lot of stuff about the civil service, and the way that they've acted, it's absolutely disastrous. And people out there in the country are so angry. We're going on a march now from Sunderland to London, Leave Means Leavers. And you can see, the march is going bigger and bigger every single day, more supporters, hundreds and hundreds of people sort of joining in this sort of 300-mile journey. And you can understand why, because they feel that they've been betrayed by the establishment, and that's exactly what's happened.
And so that march ends in London on the 29th in Parliament Square, is that right? Yeah. As someone who's campaigned for Brexit for, obviously in your case, several years, are you surprised by just how vicious and how aggressive the opposition continues to be? I imagine you're kind of expecting there to be some continuity of the Remain campaign, but are you surprised by how strong it's been?
Very surprised. We used to talk about how, in Ireland and in France and in Holland and stuff, they would have to be forced to sort of vote again on these things until they got the right decision. And we sort of thought, I thought that could never happen in Britain. We're a proper democracy, not like those people on the continent who might be quite happy to sort of, they don't have those institutions that have been there for such a long time like us. We've had Magna Carta for almost 1,000 years. But what I'm trying to say is that in Britain, I never thought that would ever happen.
Yeah.
But the Remainers, the way that they've acted, it's a disgrace, total disgrace. I can't believe that 2 years after the largest democratic mandate in British history was voted through by 17.4 million people, way more votes than, for example, Tony Blair got in his 97 landslide. I can't believe that after 2 years, the Remainers are trying to stop it. And there's an revoke Article 50 petition.
Yeah.
There's gained like 2 million signatures in like a day.
Although I believe you can sign that as many times as you want. Or indeed from Estonia or Finland.
Yeah, half of it's probably fraudulent, but still it shows the extent to which they just couldn't care less about our democratic institutions. And there's a great article, I think it's in the New York Times, talking about how, in fact, centrists globally are much more likely to be authoritarian than those on the far left and the far right. they believe they have this snobbery that they know best, and that people voting is just some kind of irrelevance, and it's just a formality, and that if their centrist agenda isn't pushed, or their sort of pro-EU, pro-sort of globalist agenda isn't pushed by the people, or isn't voted for by the people, then that's irrelevant. And because the people are stupid, we didn't know what we were voting for, we were lied to, we were gullible. Don't be silly, people don't understand what they're talking about. It wasn't even, in fact, the EU referendum wasn't about the EU, it was about all these other things that they claim that it's about, like the environment and all this stuff. So yeah, of course, just ignore that and let's revoke Article 50 and stop Brexit, because obviously it's such a chaos and a mess. I mean, that argument is metropolitan, elitist. I think it's vile. And you speak to people across the country outside of the Westminster bubble, and that is, people say the Westminster bubble is, oh no, it's not real, it's relevant, what are you talking about? It's just some cliche. No, it's not. People in London have totally different views to people outside the country. Most of the people in Britain don't live in London. People in London forget that. So if you go outside of the Westminster bubble and you speak to real people who voted for Brexit, these people aren't stupid, they're not unintelligent, they know exactly what they're voting for. They were voting against the EU. That was what's on the ballot paper, leaving the EU, not anything else. So yeah, I've been totally surprised by the extent to which these snobbery Remainers have gone to try and disrupt democracy. It's astonishing.
I mean, what do you think it would mean for British democracy if the referendum result isn't implemented, if we don't actually leave?
A total disaster. Total and utter disaster. When in history of British democracy have we voted for something, not even delivered it, and then been forced to vote again on it because the establishment didn't like it? I mean, it's unprecedented. It's absolutely unprecedented. And the fact that they've got so far in, there's a serious chance there could be a second referendum. The fact that they've managed to get so far just shows how powerful that they are. And when you vote, I mean, Brexit was the first time, it was again unprecedented, that the establishment failed to get what they wanted. They always kept winning these sort of, David Cameron won his election and won the Scottish referendum and the AV, and in 1973, when we came in and all that stuff, they've always managed to basically win the establishment against the people. But the first time in 2016 was when the people fought back, and we finally won against those elites in Westminster and in Brussels. But I mean, the establishment clearly didn't like that, and they spent the last 2 years fighting back. And you're right, I mean, faith in British democracy would collapse. I mean, we've been doing some polling recently that shows that 35% of Leave voters wouldn't vote again if Article 50 is extended. 20% of Leave voters, or 20% of the whole of the population, the public, would never vote again if Theresa May's deal goes through. I mean, the funny thing is, Remainers would actually probably like that. If a whole chunk of the Leave electorate fell out of, was so sort of had so much discontent with the political system that they failed to vote, I think probably most people in Westminster wouldn't mind, or would probably actively encourage it, because they don't want those people in the electorate, because they see them as a problem, not as part of the solution, and not as people to be persuaded. They're just so stupid and such low IQ that it's not even worth trying to persuade them. They're just these ridiculous racist lies that they've been persuaded by, and there's nothing we can do for them, so let's just ignore them.
I mean, do you think British democracy is actively under threat?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, 100%. I mean, you can't... As I say, there's been no time in British history where you've been forced to vote on the same issue without even delivering it. I'll tell you what it's like. This is what's happened in 2016. Largest democratic mandate says we leave the EU.
Yeah.
We install a woman who voted to remain as Prime Minister, who then installs a cabinet who is almost like, 70% Remain or whatever it was.
Although originally Leave did have some of the key portfolios, but obviously they
But even from the beginning, they had like 6 out of 20, however many positions there are in the cabinet. So a majority Remain cabinet. 75% of MPs voted to Remain. We have a Remainer Prime Minister. The guy who's heading the negotiations isn't actually a minister, it's a guy called Oliver Robbins, who's a massive Remainer. I mean, so you have the largest democratic mandate, and then you have all these people in the key institutions who are meant to deliver the Brexit result, all who voted to remain, and all who actually, they didn't change their mind after one day. They didn't suddenly think, oh, well, actually, we need to leave. And so, some of them may say that they're trying to respect the will of the people and they just want to carry out democracy. But it's like putting Jeremy Corbyn in charge if Theresa May won the election to try and deliver the Conservative manifesto. he can say as much as he likes that he wants to deliver the will of the people and deliver the Conservative manifesto, but it's just never going to happen because he doesn't believe in it. And you can't have a load of people running the country trying to deliver on the largest democratic result in British history who don't actually believe in the policy that they're trying to deliver. So no matter how many times they go to Brussels and trying to negotiate on behalf of Britain, I'm sorry, if you are a Remainer who genuinely believes that the EU is the best way, the best route for this country in the future or whatever, then there's no way that you can deliver on the Brexit result because your heart isn't in it and you simply don't believe in it. So you're not going to throw your whole self at it and try to make sure that the Brexit result is delivered in that it's an opportunity for the country. Because the way that they view it is that, oh, well, people voted for it, therefore we have to tick these boxes. Yeah. They say we have to deliver on immigration, we have to deliver on money, and we have to deliver on the laws. They don't see it as an opportunity for the country. So if you don't see it as a massive opportunity and look, this is a new age for Britain, we can get outside the EU and start trading on internationally, etc., instead you see it as some kind of chore and you have to tick these boring boxes and those are my red lines and I'm not going to pass those red lines, then you can never truly deliver on Brexit. So we were totally stitched up from the very beginning, unfortunately. And then you've got institutions like the BBC who are totally been pro-Remain, Sky News pro-Remain. I mean, almost the entire establishment are pro-Remain. And this is where we've come to 2.5 years down the line.
I mean, if Brexit doesn't happen, do you think British politics could become more radicalised, especially on the right? With those people who feel angry about...
That anger's got to go somewhere, right? I mean, there's probably a good core 20% of the population who, if Brexit isn't delivered, would go to extreme parties on the left and the right. I mean, like communists, I'm sure that Jeremy Corbyn's a massive Brexiteer, doesn't like to say it. But, I think...
Do you appreciate his support? Are you secretly grateful?
Oh, 100%. And those, John McDonnell and all those guys...
Seamus Milne.
All of them, they're Brexiteers, 100%. And they've been trying to deliver on Brexit more than Theresa May has. All this second referendum stuff about Labour supporting second referendum, I mean, yeah, it's total nonsense. But at the same time, I don't think Corbyn would never actually truly want that, and he's never actually. I mean, if you look at him Prime Minister's questions, it's so funny that all the Remainers behind him trying to get him to say that he wants a second referendum, he just never says it. So he's never like, oh, we should put it back to the people. It's always general election and all this stuff. Yeah. So of course he wants to deliver a Brexit, and so does all those most of the senior Labour Party politicians do. So yeah, I mean, you're right. There probably would be some serious consequences if it doesn't get delivered. I'm not encouraging that. I just think it's truth, because if you ignore democracy, people go to extremes. So that's why those Remainers, massive ultra Remainers, who say that we're scaremonger or causing fear or whatever. No, it's a load of rubbish. The fact is, people don't like it when you say something and it doesn't get delivered. When your vote is irrelevant, you'll either never vote again or you'll vote for extreme parties who have extreme alternatives.
Now, obviously, what Theresa May would say is it's a very simple way to deliver Brexit, and that's via her deal. I mean, do you think that Theresa May's deal honours the referendum result?
I mean, the problem is her deal isn't Brexit. Her deal means that we're trapped in a customs union with the EU, which means
if the Northern Ireland backstop activated.
Well, yeah, definitely. Which obviously it would be. Well, the EU has no incentive not to activate it because they want us trapped in that customs union. I mean. So yeah, first of all, trapped in customs union. Second of all, we have to pay £39 billion to the EU. I mean, no one voted to pay £39 billion. I say no one voted to be poor, and no one voted to pay £39 billion to the EU. I mean, there's so many other aspects. I mean, there's defence, where she signed us up to so many defence institutions. They're setting up a sellout for fishing. The ECJ still gets ruled over us in so many different aspects of our lives. So, I mean, she says about ticking all these boxes about controlling. The one thing it does get is controlling immigration. But there's still a 2-year or even longer transition period, which could block that even further. So we could be in a situation where if we voted for Theresa May's deal, 5 years, 6 years down the line, we don't even have control of our borders. I don't call that Brexit.
And one thing I've heard some people say is there could be another referendum, but it'd be between not leave and remain. It would be between May's deal and the current EU membership. I mean, would you regard that as a total stitch-up?
Totally. I mean, it's May's deal or May's deal. Do you know what I mean? You've got two of the same options. I mean, remaining in the EU or being trapped in the EU. That would be a complete and utter farce. I mean, that wouldn't just see the rise of extremism. That would see the rise of people probably not voting ever again. I mean, imagine all elections in the future. The turnout would be like, I don't know, 30% lower than it normally would be, because you would see a vast swathe of the electorate who just would give up. I don't know why I'd ever vote again. I mean, what's the point? You're giving two options that the establishment have given you, that neither of which represent leaving the EU. It would just be, I just can't even imagine that scenario happening. But the fact is, there's so many people even talking about that, it's a disgrace.
I mean, so presumably you would urge Tory MPs to kind of, or Tory Eurosceptics to hold the line and to continue voting in the meaningful vote free against the deal.
As they will, I'm sure.
Yeah.
As they will. I mean, there's 20 Tory MPs who just will never vote for this thing.
And one final question. So obviously, if the government is brought down, which is possible, and there's a general election, is there not a risk that then Corbyn becomes Prime Minister and you end up with Labour's customs union or staying in?
There's risks in whatever you do. And if you don't take those risks, then you don't get anywhere. Yeah. I don't think we should be threatened or bullied into thinking, well, you know, having another general election is a bad thing. In that, look, let the people decide. I'm a Democrat. Yeah. If there's going to be a general election, then there's going to be a general election, and the party that says they're going to deliver Brexit will hopefully win, and I'll be campaigning for that party. So fine, if there's a risk of Jeremy Corbyn becoming leader, fine. But it doesn't mean that I have to then go and accept this terrible deal that Theresa May is offering MPs. I don't believe in threats. I believe in delivering Brexit. So yeah, there are risks. I mean, there's risks in extending Article 50. There's a risk in doing everything. But Theresa May's deal is the riskiest of them all because it means being trapped within an EU without having any say, or in large parts of the EU without having any say.
No, Stephen, thank you very much for your time. It's been a real pleasure. And if you managed to get this far in the video, thank you very much as well. And if you want to subscribe, I would not object or be angry. So thank you.
Subscribe.
Yes, thank you.